this is Tim Woodruff, and I'm sitting here in my home studio area, and I wanted to kind of walk you guys through my pedal board. It might look like a lot, but the brains of all this is this Zoom G1X4. And what I've got on here is a couple of patches that are kind of based mostly around a matchless DC30, and it has a Bogner 412 cab that it's connected to. And if I reach down here real quick and I'll click into the patch, you can kind of see what's going on. If I zoom in there, the cab and the amp are there, and there's like a noise reduction, and then there's also a pedal delay. When I put my foot on this expression pedal here, you can hear the delay kind of come in and out. So very, very useful. This thing does all kinds of cool stuff that I won't get into. There's a drum machine, there's a looper. It's great for practice. I bought this originally because I was going to do some playing in church where it was literally just take the smallest thing I can. And so I was running full patches, basically were about like this. And then there's another patch that I've got saved on here that's also ambient reverbs and choruses and stuff. And I would just switch between those two. At some point, I had all these pedals, or most of these pedals on my board. I wasn't really using my board anymore. I used to tour with a band that would play, and we would play in churches, and we had actual amps and stuff we would take with us. And so the board was sort of set up to go with my Blackstar ID core. And at some point, I just stopped using that because we were on in-ears in the church, and there wasn't really a need to lug a whole bunch of gear for like 3 songs or 4 songs on a Sunday morning. At some point, I was like, I should actually use all this stuff. And so I've kind of got everything set up in this way where you can think of this Zoom modeler right here as my amp. And I've got sort of your standard dry amp with a little bit of grit on it. Actually, to be fair, I should take the compressor off. I run this compressor on all the time, but the patch basically sounds like this. Just a light amount of slapback. And like I said, I can dial it up and down with the expression. If I go to the left, I've got a swell preset that's and the reason I like this compressor pedal on, if I'm running different guitars, I can take that level control and kind of adjust the gain here however I want. I usually keep the sustain right there around 11 o'clock. So you can basically see that it's right there at like 11 o'clock on the sustain, about 9 o'clock on the level, and then full out on the attack. That kind of helps give me sustain on some of these swell things too. Like there's an ambient patch that doesn't have a swell. It's just a modulated delay and a verb. Most of the time I'm playing through one of these like Yamaha Pacifica or HSS Strat. I really like how you have the combination of the neck pickup, the middle pickup, and then you get the humbucker and the bridge. And what's kind of cool about this is like typically like a Strat pickup and the bridge, it's kind of weak and a little thin. And I'm always kind of missing that kind of more chunk, especially if I kind of go back right here and I like click on, say, like the Sir Riot clone that I've got. So that's kind of like your Les Paul setting, you know? And then a lot of people don't really use that middle pickup, but what's kind of cool about it is that if you do use it, it almost functions more like a tele bridge. Or you can do something like and it just kind of is a nice extra color. I mean, I think the HSS setup is kind of superior in that way. Mine doesn't have the split on the humbucker, but I kind of like that combination of the middle and the bridge humbucker full on. It's a little fatter, even on the clean. In between sound that I use quite a bit, actually, especially if I want kind of a crunchy sound, but I don't want it to really be too aggressive, like this could be a little bit bright, and this will kind of just almost take the edge off without even rolling off the tone. So that's really useful. I'm going to go back and talk about each one of these pedals. So the compressor is the first pedal I ever bought, maybe aside from like a BBE green screamer that I had a long time ago. But when I got out of college and I started playing with Solomon's Porch, I bought this compressor pedal just to kind of goose the front end of my Blackstar ID Core, which I'll show in another video sometime. But the ID Core is kind of a cool amp, just if you like sort of tube sounds, but like sort of a digital solid state kind of thing. It's got a lot of built-in effects, but what it didn't have was any kind of a gain in front of it. And so I was also playing with volume pedals and volume swells at the time. And one thing that you can really do a lot better when you have, when you're doing that is if you have a compressor in front, it'll kind of give you a little extra sustain on clean tones. So just kind of sustains it a little bit. Dan from that pedal show calls it the overdrive for your clean sound. So that's why I use that a lot. And also I just kind of got where I liked the way that it sounded in front of everything. It's sort of a level set. You can use it to adjust the volume that you have going in the rest of your signal chain. So I kind of use it as a gain stager. You can turn the sustain all the way down. You basically have a clean boost that functions really well. I like mid boost for some things, but it's nice to have pedals that are more the flat EQ for a lot of stuff, or, at least that it's not so pronounced in the mids. Maybe there's like less bass. So that's the compressor, and that's pretty much on all the time, which is why there's no riser or anything on that. So the next pedal on the board is actually this Azor Distortion, and it's there's a bunch of sort of Sir Riot clones that I've seen out there. And this one's a pretty good one. When I bought my pedals in order, I actually bought the Fuzz after the compressor, which is like a big muff. And then I bought the Crazy Cacti, and then the rest of these modulation ones on the left side kind of came. And then the Distortion, I just realized I needed something with a little bit more bite. So the Distortion sits first in the chain. And I find that, I know some people say distortions go first, then overdrives, then boosts, and then some people go the other way. I kind of like to sort of do this in between where distortion, overdrive, and then fuzz. And fuzz, I feel like with being like a mid-scooped big muff style fuzz can be really, it can be really hard to EQ sometimes. But if you can punch something in the front of it, that can really help. So here's about where I typically have the distortion set be like this. So it's pretty straightforward. There's a switch on it. I honestly leave it in the middle all the time because I don't think the other sounds sound all that different. And if anything, this is the best of the pretty minimal change you get between all of them. And then there's this one, which is actually, this is a Crazy Cacti by K-Line. And this is like a full tone, full drive 2 clone. It's got comp cut, which is like a clean boost. It's got that full mid mode and then the vintage mode. The vintage mode's kind of cool because if you put it on that and then it's kind of got a little bit of a fuzz tone, and then when you turn the MOSFET boost on, still on full mid. It's almost got like a fuzz face sound to it. And I asked somebody one time, I think it was Fuzz on Threads, or I just posted about it basically, and it was like noticing that there's kind of a fuzzy sound, especially if you dime the boost out all the way. And he was saying that that the original full tone has that as well. But what I've been using mostly these days is if I just put the switches where it's like that, so it's at comp cut, and that's kind of that clean boost, and it'll just kind of add like the nice little bit of grit in front of the amp. And then it's got a really great solo tone on here too. So that's really nice, kind of mid gain. And then you can always do things like if you get this distortion on and you want to boost that. That's a nice other little sound to do. Now the fuzz. The Azor fuzz is a big muff clone. And it's pretty woolly. Sometimes I'll turn the tone up way more than that, especially if I'm running into like I got a diesel patch that I sometimes run on this Zoom when I'm running some chunkier rhythm sounds. I'll often just dime this and almost use it like a fuzzy treble booster. But usually I keep the fuzz no more than like 9 o'clock, and then I'll run something like the distortion right into it. And you can hear how that's pretty scoopy. Not the greatest for lead, but it's pretty good for rhythm. But if you put something like this in front of it, suddenly you get something that's a little more. That's pretty cool. And even running like the comp cut off of the Crazy Cacti, and it's pretty nice. So that's a pretty cool sound. It gets used a lot on in really random things. I still would like to have a fuzz that has more of a mid boost on it, but this is a pretty good one. Now this is a pedal that on the other side, so the signal chain goes out of the fuzz and jumps over into this little wet effects section right here. And there's a couple things on here that I like. So one of the coolest things on this one is actually the chorus, and it has like a chorus phaser, actually 2 choruses, has a tremolo, rotary, there's like a filter sweep. I don't remember what the last thing is. I think it's a flanger. But most of the time I'm using like the phaser and the tremolo and the chorus on this, and this is a really nice chorus. And I compare it with something like the Snakebite reverb, which is a really great sort of low cost reverb from K-Line. And drop that. Right now it's just set to a room, but what's great is you can actually take that mix knob and pull the decay way up, and suddenly you've got, and it's not quite as great as say like the Hall reverb and the Zoom, but I compare it with like the delay on the Echo Square. If I set it to something like this, and I get this nice little. And that's really a nice sound. So like the Echo Square kind of handles like 7 different delay presets, but 90% of the time I'm on that mod. Recently I was on this other reverse setting that I thought was pretty cool too, that just kind of, you can turn it up the mix pretty high. And I'll use something like right here, this small preset. And maybe do like good for textures in the background and that kind of thing. So that's the two things I use on the Echo Square. Now back to this Mod Square. It's got a great little phaser right here. Most of the time, other than for tremolo, I can actually leave the settings exactly where I have them and just sweep around with the knob of my foot. This one sounds pretty good on the ambient setting too. And then there's a great rotary setting on here. I wouldn't really say that this is like rotary speaker so much as maybe more like and this can sound really cool, like if you put it on the bridge pickup, dump all the tone on your guitar, maybe even throw it into the fuzz. Was pretty usable. I would probably bump the rate up just a tad. Something like that. This, like I said, the snake bite's kind of good for anywhere from a room reverb to like this kind of a medium kind of hall thing. And then, there's, once you get back to the zoom, obviously we've had the patches that I've been switching between. I've done a couple other things, like I've got a lead preset that just bumps up a couple of dB. It's the same exact thing with the delay pretty high, so you can hear. So if I'm running like an overdrive or something. And I will occasionally put the fuzz on like an EQ setting that has some mid hump on it, just so I can do more lead with it. Versus you hear that. So it's a little bit more mid focused. I don't use that quite as much. Some other amps that I run on here from time to time. This patch is called Super Clean, and it's basically like a JCM 800, but the clean channel, which I find sounds a lot like a Fender Super Reverb or like a Fender Twin or something really clean. Right now I've got turned up pretty high, but if I put it on this and then run the chorus and into that. Also likes the fuzz pretty good. I also think the fuzz sounds really good with the compressor on in front of it. I've tried putting it before the compressor, and I don't really like the sound of that as much. And, it's just, you try different things. You definitely hear that whining happen as soon as you turn the fuzz on. The fuzz also sounds really great with this mod. I guess that almost like the Cure kind of a lead tone or something. If I go up to bank number 5, I think it is, and I scroll back down, when I'm recording, a lot of times I'll actually run off of this bank because this has a lot more just like a series of amps in a row. So Sunday is basically what became the matchless presets. And I'm big into Goo Goo Dolls and Lifehouse and some of those Toad the Wet Sprocket and Gem Blossoms and that kind of stuff and Third Day. And so a lot of that Southern alt rock kind of thing happens. I'd use this on something like kind of just that jangly thing. But then I do like having some amps that are more gained up. This Marshall one, pretty similar to the matchless. I don't use it quite as much. The rectifier one, I use a good bit for tracking. And then this Diesel is just a monster. Let's see what's going on there. If I hit the stop button, I might be able to. Oh yeah, the mod delay is actually on that. Let's see if I can turn that off. And those are mainly the amps that I use. And you can see right there, if you were to zoom in on the screen, I'm using the Bogner cab for all of them. The one thing I found with working with this is that it has a lot of good amps in it, but I felt like they all kind of suffered from being a little bit flat and dry. And as soon as I put that 412 on, the Bogner cab really has this nice thud to it that helps out a lot of the sounds to just be a little bit more filled out. And you would think that would be more for these. But even something if I come back down to that clean tone, I feel like it just fills it out in a really nice way compared to the other thing. And if I was to put it on something else, which I won't, because every preset has that. It was really brittle and not nice sounding and what you would think of from a cheap digital unit. But I think that this thing has a lot more capability. And like I said, everything I bought here is either from Sweetwater or Amazon. It's all based on other stuff for the most part, except for some of these right here and this. But this section is, based off really recognizable circuits that are really well done. And, I've played most of this stuff from anywhere from about 8 years to, this one's within the last year. And it's all been really good. I've gigged with it. I've taken it places. And, is it going to be tour worthy? No. Do I tour? No. I play around a good bit, and I haven't had any issues with it as long as I'm careful with it. Everything's made of metal except for this, which is still a really nice plastic. And it's a good setup. It works for me. I get a lot of tones out of it. 90% of what you hear on my albums is coming off of this, if it's electric guitar, and occasionally it's running off of this little Black Star right here, which is a really great amp. And again, I'll do a video of it sometime. But yeah, that's my rig. I really like it. I've got a 339 back there that I run a lot. That's got the 10 to 52s on it, and I keep it in C sharp standard right now. And then I've got an Ibanez Alt Star acoustic that I really like, that maybe I'll pull out and talk about sometime. That's a really great amp as well, or a great guitar as well. So yeah. Yeah, so thank you for watching this. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. I love talking about this stuff. I like crafting sounds and making things that sort of transport you and give you sonic textures and stuff. And so, yeah, I'm always excited to talk about gear and tone crafting and stuff. And the thing that I found that worked the best for me was just to find some good stuff, really get to know it well, and learn how to make the best music I can with it. And then once I got a good setup, just stop focusing on the gear acquisition and just really think about, how do I make songs with this? How do I write things? And that's why I've been writing songs for 5 years now and have 3 albums out and stuff. Is like, I realized at some point, if you collect all this gear and you don't use it, then is it really worth it? So I've got 3 guitars. I play on everything, and I know how to get a lot of different sounds out of them, and I supplement that with a lot of software synth VSTs and drum machines and stuff, and I can get my way around the software pretty good. So editing Tim here, and I realized that I failed to mention exactly what's going on with this stuff right here. So this is a junction box, and this makes it a lot easier for me to get my in and my out without having to worry about where the pedal placement is. It also makes it nice because if someone decided to step on a jack right there and it broke off in this thing's like $20-ish on Amazon. This thing is like probably gone up since I paid 30 something for it. So I'm imagining it's probably like 40 or 50 now. And these guys are a little bit more, I try to take a little better care of them because I don't know they would be quite as sturdy. And, it's just nice to have something that's a little bit more of like a single junction box. And then this is sort of a secret weapon for me. You'll notice that I'm using a 1 spot on a daisy chain. And typically people say that's not the best thing to do. But, I don't really have the money to spend on a $150 power brick. So what I did do is for the longest time, I just ran all of this stuff minus the zoom off of the 1 spot with no issues. But when I integrated the zoom into this whole setup, I started getting this high-pitched whine. And I was able to solve that by, number 1, putting the zoom noise reduction on in this thing. And then the second thing I did was I bought this ZGP that goes inline. And so the daisy chain goes there, and then there's a separate little isolation happening right here that then runs out to the zoom. And that solves a lot of that crazy like digital whine that you get from pedals, particularly ones with a screen. And so that, if you ever run into that, these little inline isolators can save your bacon without a whole lot of dough. So yeah, just check that out. That can be something really useful for you. I also didn't mention, and since I'm up on this, I might as well just kind of show you up close what all my settings are and what pedals are called. This is Coco Compressor. This is the K-Line Crazy Cacti. You can see the comp cut, full mid, vintage, MOSFET, and standard boost. I only ever use the MOSFET boost because it kind of sounds like an overdrive and not just a clean boost. This is a Sir Riot clone. It's an Azor Distortion. This is the Azor Fuzz, and it's kind of based off of a Big Muff. This is the Mod Square, and you can see the settings that I have for tremolo. Usually if I'm going to run chorus, I'll just dial that rate back and go like that. It's got chorus A, chorus B, flanger, tremolo, rotary, vibrato. Sorry for the dog hair. And flanger. This has digital, analog, tape, mod, sweep, lo-fi, and reverse delay. Most of the time I just got it right up here, and I'll probably do something like this. Time somewhere in there, and that can make sort of a nicer, like longer. Sometimes I'll put it up there for more feedback and nicer, longer mod. I've had it up here because I'm doing some stuff that wants a little bit more ambient, and so I'll run it kind of like that and get that sort of reverse thing happening. This is the snakebite reverb. It's got some interesting controls on it. So like you see res, CFR, LPF. It basically is just bass, middle, treble, and then this is pre-delay. This is the mix, and this is the decay. So the more you go out this way, you get more of an ambient hall. This way's a little more room, and this just kind of adjusted. So on the average, I'm leaving all this stuff alone and just touching these two knobs when I need them. And then back into this thing. So this is kind of what you can see there. I don't have it turned on right now, but you can basically see it's got a looper, it's got rhythm. You page between the presets and then the editor with this button here. And then you can access banks of presets there and turn things on and off with these buttons. So it's really cool. Thanks.